Yes.
So finding that particular mood wasn't difficult. I think when you're in clothes like that and the hair and the makeup's done in that way, and the sets were so particular, and we filmed in real houses on real locations, and so everything felt very real and tangible all the time. And the way the dialogue was written too, there was so much to be expressed in between the words. And as an actor, I never felt rushed, or I had to speed things up because I was taking up too much screen time, or get to the next line or the next beat, or because Jane created an environment where things felt intimate and things felt real. Could take our time.
Did it take forever to light each scene? I imagine it must have. No.
It took a bit of time, but Greg Fraser, the DOP, he worked pretty quick, and he's a quiet worker too. Jane and Greg would kind of felt like they had a lot figured out. Right. But I think that's the way Jane works in general. Her prep period is very involved in all regards, whether it's rehearsal with actors or a set designer or costumes or anything. So I think they really pretty connected with each other. They'd made some short films together before, and for a young guy, he was always so on the money with the way he was seeing things. And
Greg Fraser is young.
He's a young guy, yeah.
Like 30s?
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Young Aussie guy.
I didn't think any DPs on a major film were in their 30s.
Yeah.
I thought you had to, pay your dues, be around for a while.
Right.
Before they,
Yeah, no, he's a cool guy.
Now, there's a thing, whenever I see any historical film that is of any interest, immediate thing, go home, read the Wikipedia page, get all the, do your whole study thing. There were letters between the two lovers.
Yeah.
That were, I think, published posthumously or later, certainly later.
And they were Keats's letters to Fanny that were posted, because Keats destroyed all of Fanny Braun's letters before he passed away.
And they were described, and I certainly am not holding up Wikipedia as the ultimate, source on this, but they were described as somewhat, at least in the time when they were read, of a scandalous nature, which I presume means of a lewd and sexually suggestive nature. I presume. Is that correct? From what you obviously know much more about this than I.
Well, I think for that time, maybe they were. But if you read them now, you would not think that at all. You would think, when's this guy getting to the point?
Yeah, right. Any Esquire sexual advice column would outdo it in a second.
Totally. But he, I think, I think, people ask about the sexuality between them a lot, and we, in rehearsals, it was evident that Keats had sexual relationships before, but Fanny Braun hadn't. She was a virgin, and we talked a little about their sexual relationship, but I don't know. I guess we all had such an understanding about the fact that the love between them and the purity of their love seemed to transcend anything, and that scene at the end where they're about to separate, and Fanny says to Keats, I'd do anything, and he says, I have a conscience. And so he makes a decision not to have sex with her before he leaves, because he wants to keep that image of who she is to him in his mind, and keep the purity of their love in his mind, and let her then go on in her life. He didn't want to take that from her, which I think, is such a romantic, interesting thing for a male to do, knowing that he is about to walk to his deathbed.
I think that if you are really in love with someone and you're given, say, you don't see each other, and it's very limited, your opportunities to spend time with them, I think that, I believe that a person truly in love would not really have to have sexual time.
No.
It really is just being with them. That's the thing. Obviously, no sex ever over periods of one, but I'm just saying, I think I understood what was going on.
I think so too, and I think it just takes things to another level. It doesn't become about sex and sexuality. or the act of having sex. It becomes about much greater things that are much more eternal and timeless, and hold more weight in the long term. You know, I think.
As I have said to Carrie Mulligan, another young actress I admire tremendously, I really love your natural accent.
Oh yeah.
And of course, this town anyway probably tells you half or most of the time. How you please do your American accent or whatever. And I just love the way your natural tongue works.
Yeah, the Australian accent is an interesting accent, I think, and I enjoy it as well. I enjoy speaking it. And
now, how many gradations of American? See, there's many different, say, New York accents. How many really distinct New Zealand and Australian accents are there, would you say?
I don't know how many really distinct ones there are, but I mean, I myself can hear the difference between, rural New South Wales, which is the state that I grew up in. I grew up in the country, and so the difference between rural New South Wales to Sydney, Melbourne, Perth. I mean, I can hear all of that stuff, Adelaide, and, particularly when you get into the more, desolate parts of Australia and stuff, like right out into the sticks, you can really hear it. Yeah.
Now, Sam Neill, I happened to see him at a party for the Boys Are Back.
Yeah.
And I made one of the big, horrible faux pas, which is presume that he was Australian. And he's from Wellington, I think. And he said, "Oh no, I don't care." But I knew he was lying. It's like, you don't do that. So.
Yeah.
But you can definitely tell New Zealand, right?
You can tell New Zealand. I'll tell you the easiest way to tell. Get them to say fish and chips, and if they say fish and chips, they're from New Zealand. If they say fish and chips, they're from Australia. So the difference would be the U sound. So fish is Australian, fish is New Zealand.
F-U-H-S-H.
Yeah, it's almost like F-U-S-H.
Not push, but kind of a fish.
Fish.
Yeah.
Fish, chips.
Oh, I just learned something.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I always think, because it's such a thing that I remember, like fish and chips. But it's the easiest way to tell. That I sound, that it sound turning into sound.
Right. If you learn something every day, you're doing something right with your life. So.
But I tell you what, we claim them anyway, Russell Crowe and Jane Campion, and we've kind of claimed, and anyone,
I'm somewhat friendly with Philip Noyce.
Oh, right.
He used to have a place in the hills up there. And he'd have his parties, all the Australian actors would all come over. Is there a bonding thing that you sense or
here
know about?
In Los Angeles?
Either here in Los Angeles or wherever, anywhere in the country that you're...
Well, I actually haven't spent much time here. I've only lived here for the last year, and year and a bit. Probably a year and 4 months actually. But for the last 4.5 months of that, I've been working in Vancouver. But I definitely noticed it before when I would make short trips here. Heath was a really great friend of mine, and he would really look after all of his friends and other people that would come here. From Australia, yeah.
Did you guys know each other before Candy, or was it Candy where you got to know each other?
It was on Candy, yeah. It was such an amazing experience making that film with him. It really was.
Definitely